Well, here we are again, yet again on another Friday. I think this is our fifth Friday where we're talking about immortality. My second time having the privilege of having our president, Jeffrey, back with us. Last week, Jeffrey spent some time lingering, and we could have spent a lot more time lingering in 1 Corinthians 15. Gave us a lot to think about. This week, I believe, Jeffrey, you're going to take us to 1 Peter. So you and I have had a little chance to talk about this. Share what's on your heart and mind out of 1 Peter regarding our immortality.
Well, again, it goes back, Dee Dee, to what we talked about last week, and we just don't think deeply enough about it, and we project out our experiences now. How could we not? I mean, it's all we know. It's like a fish that's, swum around in the ocean its whole life, and you can talk about being up on land, but it's like, I don't quite get that. I don't feel that. I don't have any legs, I mean, it's very difficult to try and really capture what that will look like. And yet again, we have what's revealed through the scriptures. And then I'll give you my take on the end of this. So 1 Peter chapter 1, through the resurrection, because everything's predicated on the resurrection. Look, if Jesus wasn't raised from the dead, as Paul said, as we have referred to last week, 1 Corinthians 15, this is all insanity. I mean, we of all men are most to be pitied for even talking about this, wasting our time. It doesn't matter if he's a good teacher or any of that. If he wasn't raised in a physical body, in a literal way, not a spiritual, like, spirits kind of hanging around, and it's like I've been around a lot of men who've tried to put their names on buildings to try to kind of perpetuate the spirit of their name and things. That is not what happened. It is not the Christian faith. That is not what we believe. We believe that Jesus came just exploding out of the grave on the Feast of First Fruits, which was the context of 1 Corinthians 15, 3 days after, that death, the Passover lamb, and he comes exploding like a seed out of, and that's why Paul was using that seed language. But now he goes, Peter, now, fisherman Peter. I mean, if Peter can get this, any of us can get this, right? He says, look, because of the resurrection, we've been caused to be born again. So it's God's doing that. Now we're adopted and we become heirs, where we get our word inheritance or inheritance. And so now we become heirs. Heirs of what? Well, first of all, our greatest inheritance is Jesus, our relationship with Jesus. But we need to define what that is. And he does it in some very slick ways. And this is exactly what he says. He says, we obtain then, because we have this living hope of being born again, an inheritance which is imperishable, undefiled, will not fade away, and it's reserved. So maybe this week we could take on the first two, and then next week we'll take on the second two. But let's talk about that first part, imperishable. Again, like we said last week, I have nothing in my experience that even remotely feels imperishable. Everything in my life seems to be, again, going from a state of order to disorder, but not my inheritance. So not only me as a raised immortal with a new body once Jesus comes back, and Paul had listed an order of the resurrection, those who are Christ at his coming, and then we're all going to meet him, and we're going to live in eternally in this new place, heavens and earth. What does that look like? It's imperishable. Okay, just try to wrap your mind around this for just 1 second. Just anything in your life and say nothing will ever perish. Pregnant pause here. I mean, just think about that. Nothing will ever perish. Dennis, I've known you long. We've been known almost 40 years, believe it or not. I think I was around 20 and now I'm 60. So you're, 40 years.
Yeah.
What our distance off the tee perishes, our ability to see the whole perishes, our ability to remember that we forgot our clubs at home. I mean, our brains perishing, this inheritance, this totality of the habitat in which we will live with Jesus for all of eternity will never perish. It's just almost impossible to project out on that. But then number two, it says it's undefiled. And when we think about that for a second, everything most everything is birthed in an unholy place. It's not pure. Okay, what undefiled means is that it means pure. And so as take our lives and the totality of our existence, and everything starts with a seed that is pure, and then I think eternity will be the manifestation of these seeds for all of the time. And I cannot imagine that, well, who knows? I mean, if we think about this, if we can live in a defiled place, an unholy place, and still come up, and I've shared this with a few folks, with an iPhone, with this computer, this Zoom technology, and the drag of litigation and sin and human selfishness, and we can still come up with something like an iPhone, what's going to happen? I know it'll be timeless, but what we would consider tens of thousands of years into the future, where everybody's on the same page, nobody's suing anybody, nobody's dying, so your wisdom and insight's expanding. And if we can send a rover to Mars now this is pure speculation on my part, Didi, but why wouldn't we be exploring the 2 trillion galaxies? Are there other
Yeah.
universes? I
No,
don't
I like it.
know.
Yeah.
But think about not having the drag of sin. We've not even tasted of what would happen if we were undefiled. Our hearts, our minds, our neighbors, our habitat, our king is certainly the unblemished lamb. We have to think about that and then not get so caught up in the short-term temporary and start thinking about the eternal, because we're going to be immortal people.
That's absolutely intriguing, fascinating, and I think you're taking us down a really good road to really think about what our life in the next age looks like. So let's come back again next week,
Let's do it.
tackle those other two, and I can't wait to hear it. So to all our Links family out there, Jeffrey and I say adios. We'll see you next Friday.